Can you hear me now? No? All right, here's what I'm gonna do. You can't hear me. Can you hear? You can hear me now? Okay. All right, so let me start over. My apologies. I'm just talking and running off at the mouth, and nobody can hear what I'm saying. So please forgive me. Um, so again, let me start over. Okay. Um, all praise, glory, and honor is most certainly due to the Most High, the God of the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And peace to you in the name of Jesus. This is your brother Elisha Israel of the household of faith. I always count it truly a blessing each and every time that I can come before you to preach the word of God. And never ever do I count it as a light thing to do so. Again, I count it truly a blessing. And my apologies for the technical difficulties. Again, I'm just up here preaching, reading the word of God, and nobody can get a message that I cannot be heard. So again, my apologies. The title of today's lesson is The Cup of Iniquity. The Cup of Iniquity. You know, brothers and sisters, in the Bible, it tells us that when nations commit so much sin, so much wickedness, so much iniquity, that ultimately they are taken down. Those powerful nations are destroyed. We read that in the scriptures over and over and over again. So that's what we're going to deal with today. And we should keep that in mind when we think about the country in which we live. You know, a universal principle in this life, even in scripture, tells us you reap what you sow. You cannot continue to do wickedness and expect that all will be well with you. Even the children of Israel, who are black people that have been scattered into slavery all over the world. When you look at them, the apple of God's eye, who made a God manifested himself unto. These people made a covenant with the true and living God. And what happened to these people? They continued to sin, and it got to the point where the Lord sent his people into slavery. Moses prophesied of it. He said, you'll be taken into slavery by way of ships. And then you sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. What was that? Well, why was that to take place? It was because of sin, breaking or transgressing the law of God. And when you continue to do that, any nation, the farther away you get from God and what he set forth, the closer you get to your own demise. So keep that in mind. So we want to start off in Genesis 6, just to show you that the Lord punishes not just individuals, but nations when they get out of line. So, and peoples in general on the earth. So that's when we want to start here. Genesis 6:1. Genesis 6:1, it says, and it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. Okay, so what is it saying here? This is saying that these men of God, these are not angels, brothers and sisters. That's a lie that's been told, that angels copulated with women and then they brought forth these giants on the earth. No, you have to qualify when it says sons of God, because sons of God can be talking about angels, but it can also be talking about one who has had a literal change of body and become what God intended us to become, which is God, or a man who is a follower of God. He called us sons of God because that's what he made us to be. So you have to qualify that. We know in another place that angels don't procreate in that manner. Okay, spiritual beings don't procreate fit with physical beings. That's not how that works. Okay, so it says that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. In other words, they became unequally yoked, which Paul warns us that you should not do. Don't become unequally yoked with non-believers, and that's what they did. Because you had two seeds. You had the righteous and you had the unrighteous. You had the followers of God and the children of Satan. It's that simple. Verse 3, and it says, and the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. Okay, so What does that mean? That means the Lord simply cut down man's lifespan. Because again, when you continue to sin, punishment comes from God. When he talked to Adam, he said, in the day that thou eatest thereof the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt surely die. And what happened? He died in that day, because the day of the Lord is 1,000 years, brothers and sisters. And how long did Adam live? 930 years. Even Methuselah, who lived 969 years, did not make it out of that day. We know he wasn't, when he said you in that day thou shalt surely die, he wasn't talking about a literal 24-hour day period, because after that, when they commune with Satan, because that's what that was talking about, eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that was Satan, and they ate the fruit of lies. They commune with Satan like one would commune with God, which is what they should have done, and they would have lived forever. So they commune with Satan, and then they didn't die in that 24-hour day period. No, Adam lived and had children 930 years, which seems like a long time, but for the Lord, 1,000 years is simply a day. He didn't make it out that day, and man continued to sin. And as it got worse and worse, what did he do? He cut man's lifespan down. Even now, to where we have strength, we may get 80 years old, but he simply cut the lifespan of man. Okay, so it says, and the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he is also his flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. Again, you don't need angels to have giants, brothers and sisters. You have a whole league of giants known as the National Basketball Association. You don't need angels and women to have babies in order for them to be renowned, brothers and sisters. That's not how that works. Okay, verse 5. And God saw, pay attention, and God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart or his mind was only evil continually. See, that's what's on the mind of man. Man is wicked while he lives, and after that he goes to the grave. You know, the man's mind is desperately wicked. Who can know it? What's born out of the mind? Adultery, fornications, idolatry, all these come out of the mind. And then what's conceptualized here is manifested with your body. You see, it all starts in the mind. This is the plane where the spiritual war is won or lost, right here in the mind. That's why when Jesus came, he said, don't even look on a woman to lust after her, for you've committed adultery with her already in your heart. What does he mean? Or even Job said, I made a covenant with mine eyes that I shall not look upon a maid. What does he mean? He's saying, hey, I'm not thinking about that up here. So if I'm not thinking of that up here, well, I'm dispelling that thought when it comes up here. Certainly, I'm not committing an act. But if someone is constantly dwelling on that, if the opportunity arises, then they succumb to their flesh. So we have to clean this out. How do we clean this wretched, nasty, sinful mind out that's full of wickedness? With the water of the word of God. Just that simple. So it says in verse 6, and it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast and the creeping thing. It says, and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. Then it said, but Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. See, brothers and sisters, when you continue to sin, you can expect, or individually, you can expect for the Lord to deal with you. Even if it's not in this time, it's the time to come at judgment. But understand, for nations and groups of people, even, he deals with this man. Verse 12 says, and God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. Then he says, and God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. And that's what's going to happen in these last days. That's why when he comes back, you read in Matthew 24, that the tribes of the earth shall mourn. That's why you read in Revelation, it says, hide us, let the rocks fall on us, and hide us from the wrath of the Lamb. That's why he's coming back in flaming fire, taking vengeance on them that know not God and that obey not his gospel. So he would deal with nations and large groups in this manner. Let's go to Genesis 15 to show you something. Because once a nation has done so much, the Lord will take them out. He will destroy that nation. This is Genesis 15 and verse 12, because here we're talking about the covenant that was made with Abraham. And in these verses, right prior to this, Abraham has a vision. Okay? Israel's captivity, of the nation whom will come out of his loins, their captivity is predicted here in these verses, starting at about verse 7. But we're going to start at verse 12. And it says, and when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and lo, and horror of great darkness fell upon him. And he said unto Abram, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years, brothers and sisters. 400 years. So it's not talking about American captivity here. It's talking about Egyptian captivity. Verse 14. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterwards shall they come out with great substance. Right? So Israel, they spoiled the Egyptians. The Egyptians, after those plagues were dropped by God through the power of God, they were rushing Israel out of there. Right? From the death of the firstborn, and they spoiled the Egyptians. They gave them their treasures and their jewels. Okay? Then it says in verse 15, and thou shalt go unto thy fathers in peace, thou shalt be buried in a good old age. But listen to this, because this is why I said a cup of iniquity, when it reaches its brim, then nations come to their destruction. It says in verse 16, but in the fourth generation, they shall come hither again, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. So it was like a cup. Once that cup reaches its brim full of iniquity, now it's time to take the Amorites' land. It's time to decimate it and let Israel come in, destroy those people, outpopulate those people, and take that land. See, but why did he allow that to happen? Because of the sin that was going on. Let's go to so that's just show you again, there's a cup of iniquity. Keep that in mind when we get to the end of this. This is Exodus 12 and verse 40, just to show you that this is talking, who this is talking about. Exodus 12 and 40 says, now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. So they dwelt in Egypt, and the vast majority of that time, what happened, they were oppressed in Egyptian bondage. There was even a program of genocide that took place against the male children, where they would kill the male children and they would keep the female children alive. But let's go to Exodus 23 and verse 23, because here he's talking about what he's going to do to those people. But think about it. He said, I'm going to wait 400 years until the cup of iniquity is full, and then I'm going to take them out. This is Exodus 23 and 23. It says, for mine angel shall go before thee, talking about Israel, and bring thee in unto the Amorites, right? And the Hittites, and the Perizzites, and the Canaanites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, and I will cut them off, because their time was done. It says, you see that constantly. You'll find that as we continue to read. Thou shalt not bow down to them. Then he tells us something. He tells the children of Israel something. Right? So he's destroying these people because of iniquity, but then he tells Israel something. He says, thou shalt not bow down to their gods, nor serve them, nor do after their works, but thou shalt utterly overthrow them and quite break down their images. And ye shall serve the Lord your God, and he shall bless thy bread and thy water, and I will take sickness away from the midst of thee. Then he says something else. There shall nothing cast their young, nor be barren in thy land. The number of thy days I will fulfill. Me and a brother was having a conversation about that earlier, talking about how, people think that when you don't have children, that's a blessing. You tell people you have children or a high number of children, that's frowned upon. But those children are a blessing from God, brothers and sisters. It's not a blessing for you to be barren. The key is to have those children within the confines of marriage, and marriage is between a man and a woman, not a man and a man, and not a woman and a woman. You can't produce anything but confusion and devastation. But nevertheless, 27, it says, I will send my fear before thee, and will destroy all the people to whom thou shalt come, and I will make all thine enemies turn their backs unto thee. See, and right here we see actually the solution to our problem contained within this. And when we were going into the land, because what did the people have to do to get that land? They had to, and even to get free, they had to rely on their God. See, we want to rely on voting, right? Voting in this political system is like, it's like answering the question, who you gonna vote for, Satan or the devil? Both of them lead you to destruction. There is no freedom in the vote for the so-called African American in this country. The problem is not we need to pick up arms. Listen, the people you fighting have nuclear weapons. But it wouldn't mean anything if you tap into the true power source. If you let him fight your battles. You have to think about it. How is it that Israel, who was slaves in Egypt, were able to come out of that land with great substance like we read? It's because the true and living God showed Pharaoh and showed Egypt that he was God and that he was in control and that he was going to fight for his people. That's what we need to do. If my people are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and turn and seek my face, then will I hear from heaven, forgive their sins and heal their land. We need to turn back to him in spirit and in truth. How did they take out these 7 nations greater and mightier than them? In this instance here, they relied on their God. So it says in verse 28, and I will send hornets before thee, which shall drive out the Hivite, the Canaanite, and the Hittite from before thee. I will not drive them out from before thee in 1 year, lest the land become desolate and the beasts of the field multiply against thee. But he says, by little and little I will drive them out from before thee until thou be increased and inherit the land. I'm going to give it to you. And this is how I'm going to do it. He said, I'm going to do it slowly. I'm going to destroy these people, though. Then he says, and I will set thy bounds from the Red Sea even unto the sea of the Philistines. So the nation of Israel is actually bigger than what you see on a political map. And he says, and from the desert unto the river, for I will deliver the inhabitants of the land into your hand, and thou shalt drive them out before thee. Then he says, thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor with their gods, because that's why they're getting kicked out in the first place, because of their idolatry, because of their false worship, because of their sin. Then he says, they shall not dwell in thy land, lest they make thee sin against me. Right? And if you sin against God, destruction is coming. For if thou serve their gods, it will surely be a snare unto thee. Let's go to Deuteronomy 7. Let's go to Deuteronomy 7 and see what he said here. Deuteronomy 7 and verse 1. It says, when the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, and hath cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites and the Girgashites and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites. Listen to this. He said, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. How is it that this nation that was not more powerful in weaponry or militarily or even probably numbers, more powerful than these 7 nations? It said these 7 nations were greater and mightier, but the cup of iniquity had reached its brim. See, it doesn't matter if you think about it. When these nations became more and more morally decadent, they were wiped out. Keep that in mind when you think about the nation you live in. Verse 2, and when the Lord thy God shall deliver thee before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. And that's something right now. We need to come out of the American mindset. We need to come out from amongst these people like our father Abraham came out of Babylon. Like in Revelation, John the Revelator tells us to come out of Babylon that you be not partaker of her sins. We need to come out, spiritually speaking, from this nation, because we are a nation within a nation, always have been, and we have been rejected. We continue to try to be a part of these people, but understand destruction is coming for this place. Destruction is on the horizon. Get out of the way. Verse 3, neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. Now, what we want to do, we want to integrate. We want to be a part of this people. We want to be a part of this American dream. And we know for us it's been a nightmare. We know for us it's been one program after another of decimation, destruction, slavery, Jim Crow, exploitation, and murder. And murder. Come out of them and go back to the true and living God as a nation. Repent and turn to him, and he will hear us as a nation. But as long as you try to run after white folks and where they live, you try to live in their neighborhood, and they trying to go to the moon to get away from black people. And you want to be a part of this? We've adopted death itself, when he always required of us to do what? To be sanctified. That's what it means to be holy, to be sanctified, to be set apart. He sanctified us to be a kingdom, a nation of priests, not to integrate. People talk about King and they play nice songs and they do these things, but King did not have the answer when it came to segregation. We need to come out of these pagan religions. When I'm saying pagan religions, I'm talking about this, what today is so-called Christianity, because underneath, we talked about that last time I spoke with you, is pagan at the core. We need to come out. We need to be separate. We need to be sanctified, and we need to call on our God. And if we do that, nobody can defeat us. He will bless us. How are you going to fight God? That's the question. How are you going to fight God? You can fight God, but you can't win. And see, we have been cursed by God, which is, you read Deuteronomy 28, because we sinned against God. Not because we were black. That's not it. But rather, we are peculiar people who made a covenant with him, and we have not been prospering as a people, regardless of what anybody says. When you look at our condition, it's a wretched one. Why? Because we need to turn back to God, the true power source. But no, we want to accept again that death culture of our captors. Turn back to God and have faith. So it says, neither shalt thou, this is verse 3, Deuteronomy 7, neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son, for they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. Again, being unequally yoked, like we read about in Genesis 6. He says, don't do it. So will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you and destroy thee suddenly. He says, but thus shall ye do with them. Ye shall break down, you shall destroy their altars and break down their images and cut down their groves, right, or idols, and burn their graven images. He said, or carved images. He says, for thou art in a holy people. Again, holy men, what, brothers and sisters? Sanctified unto the Lord. For thou art a holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself. Not unto these Gentiles, not unto these Europeans, not unto Satan, but unto the true and living God. God manifested himself unto us, and we had the audacity to make a golden calf. We had the audacity to turn our backs and weep for Tammuz and worship the sun and pass our children through the fire to that false god Molech. But he says, thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all the people that are upon the face of the earth. And if you knew that about yourself, perhaps you wouldn't kill your brother in the street. Perhaps you wouldn't call your sister a whore. If you knew what God created you to be. He created you to be, first of all, individually, he created us to be God. Ye are sons of God, children of the Most High God. And he, as a nation, chose us to be above all people. We've been told we less than all people. We told we're one step from the eight, but I'm telling you today that we are the children of the Most High God. So if you know that about yourself, how should you behave morally? If you know that about yourself, how should you approach education? If you know that about yourself, how should you instruct your children? How should your families and your households look? How should your economics look? How should everything look? Everything should be in order. Everything should be prospering if you are truly the children of God and are with God. But when you turn your back on God, he'll turn his back on you. And that's why we're in the condition we are in. And he gave us the solution. It's not marching through the streets yelling Black Lives Matter. That's not it. That's not it. So let's keep reading. It says in verse 7, the Lord did not set his love upon you nor choose you because you were more in number than any people. We didn't have more numbers, but he took those who had more numbers out of the way. Why? Because the cup of iniquity had reached his brim. For ye were the fewest of all people, right? You came into Egypt 70 or so souls, right? And then grew into multitudes. But even then, weren't more people of Israel than in Egypt. Not greater or mightier than these 7 nations that were cast out by the hand of God. Because when the cup of iniquity reaches its brim, there's nothing you can do. It says, but because the Lord loved you and because he would keep the oath which he swore unto your fathers. We read about the Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. We read about Abraham in that covenant. And it was passed down to his sons. Abraham, Isaac, and then Jacob. Right? It says, hath the Lord brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you out of the house of bondmen from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, the mightiest nation on the earth at that particular time. So let's go to Deuteronomy 18. Again, why did these nations get cast out? Again, you cannot think that you are going to continue to sin against God, to continue to commit wickedness. I'm not talking just individually. I'm talking about as a nation. You cannot think that you will continually do this and things will be well for you. You can't think that you're just going to kill 1 million people in Iraq unjustly. You can't just think that you're going to do God's people so badly. You can't think that you're going to abort 50 million of your own citizens through abortion, killing babies. You can't possibly think that everything's going to be okay with you. This is Deuteronomy 18:9. It says, when thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abominations of those nations. He told us that, and what are we doing? We're doing it right now. In the American context, we're doing the abomination of this nation. We want to be a part of this nation. Listen, understand, God didn't make us to be a part of this nation. This is our captivity. And if we turn back to him, he's going to take us out of this captivity. But we have to turn back as a nation, because we're a nation within a nation. And this nation is on its way out. This nation is on its way out. Just like when you read in Daniel, the one king who took the vessels that went to the temple, and he's got his wives and I believe his concubines, and they're drinking and they're partying, and then the handwriting was on the wall, mene tekel upharsin, thou hast been weighed in the balance and have been found wanting. And what happened? His time was up. His time was up. These nations rise and fall. But why? Verse 10, it says, because we read, don't do those abominations. And in verse 10, it says, there shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire. I talked about that. Or that uses divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consultant with familiar spirits. Because that's what people do when they call themselves talking to the dead. The dead don't talk. They are communing with familiar spirits. Or a wizard, or that's also what it says, or a necromancer. That's what they do. Listen to this. It says, for all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord thy God doth drive them out from before thee. That's why they got kicked out. That's why they got kicked out. Because of these abominations that they were doing. The cup of iniquity had reached its brim, brothers and sisters. Look at this nation right now. Look at the iniquity right now. You can't think things are going to continue to go on as they've been going on. And even this nation, who he said, I set you to be above all nations. Listen to what he told this people. This is Deuteronomy 28 and verse 15. It says, but it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Verse 25. The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies, right? So the Lord was fighting for you at one time. The Lord was bringing plagues for you at one time. But as you continue to sin against him, he said, I'm going to bring these enemies upon you, and they will smite you. They will destroy you. It says, thou shalt go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them, and shalt be removed into all kingdoms of the earth. We are scattered throughout the 4 winds of heaven. Verse 45. Because why? Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and shall pursue thee and overtake thee till thou be destroyed. Because thou hearkenest or listened not unto the voice of the Lord thy God to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. And then he says, and they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever, brothers and sisters. When you see the people who it says their wives will be raped, other men will lay with their wives, their children will be sold, they will build and not inhabit, they will pluck, but they will not reap the benefits. It says that they be cursed in the cities and cursed in the fields. Then it says in verse 68 about this people, it says, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. Again, Egypt represents the house of bondage. And he's talking slave ships. So you're going in the house of bondage, or you're going into slavery by way of slave ships. Ask yourself, if you're a so-called African American, how did you get here? Then it says, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you, meaning no man's going to redeem you. I mentioned Martin Luther King. He didn't have the answers. Elijah Malik El-Shabazz, these are brilliant men, but they didn't have the answers. Marcus Garvey, a brilliant man. I have Garveyites I've learned that had them in my family. But they didn't. Garvey didn't have the answer. W.E.B. Du Bois, one of the greatest scholars this country has ever produced, black or white, any race or so-called race. He was one of the greatest scholars this country has ever produced. Did not have the answers. Huey P. Newton, the Dr. Huey P. Newton. Most people don't know he had a PhD. Brilliant man. Did not have the answer. Stokely Carmichael, brilliant man. Brilliant man. Did not have the answers. No man shall buy you, meaning nobody's going to get you out of this condition. But why was this? Because we hearkened this not unto the voice of the Lord thy God. And eventually that cup of iniquity reached its brim, brothers and sisters. Let's go to Jonah, because here you see this over and over and over again, brothers and sisters. Let's go to Jonah, because when a country, a nation is about to be destroyed, one thing the Lord will do, or he has done, like with Israel, he continually sent his prophets to the people, trying to turn their wicked, stiff-necked hearts, right? They were stiff-necked, hard-headed people, but they would not turn. They persecuted the prophets. They stoned the prophets, they imprisoned the prophets, smoked the prophets, right? This is Jonah, who was a prophet. And listen to this. This is Jonah 1. It says, now the word of the Lord came unto Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry against it, for their wickedness has come up before me. A cup of iniquity is about to reach its brim. It's about to lead to their decimation. Verse let's skip to, because we know if you know, you should be familiar with this. You probably heard this with Jonah. He tried to run because he didn't want to, because of all the wickedness that had done, these people had done to Israel. He didn't want to even warn them. He wanted them to be destroyed, right? So he tries to leave, and then what happens? He's swallowed by the whale, and he eventually goes to Nineveh. And listen to this. This is chapter 3, because you can't run from God. He cried out to God out of the belly of hell. Hell have to be qualified, but let's talk because hell is a state of condition. It will also be referring to death or the lake of fire. All right, but then that's just something, just a side note, so we know that's what that's talking about. But Jonah 3 and verse 4, it says, and Jonah began to enter into the city a day's journey, and he cried and said, yet 40 days, and Nineveh shall be overthrown. So he warns the people. And what do? It says in verse 5, so the people of Nineveh believed God and proclaimed a fast and put on sackcloth from the greatest of them even to the least of them. So what do? They seem to have a repentant mindset at this time. They put sackcloth on everybody, from the men of renown to the paupers. Okay? And it says in verse 6, for word came unto the king of Nineveh, and he arose from his throne, and he laid his robe from him and covered him with sackcloth and sat in ashes, even the king. And it says, and he caused it to be proclaimed and published through Nineveh by the decree of the king and his nobles, saying, let neither man nor beast, herd nor flock taste anything. Let them not feed nor drink water, but let man and beast be covered with sackcloth and cry mightily unto God. Have a repentant mindset. This wicked nation. It says, yea, let them turn every one from his evil way. That's repentance. It says, and from the violence that is in their hands. It says in verse 9, who can tell if God will turn and repent and turn away from his fierce anger that we perish not? So they humble themselves unto God. They acknowledge their sin. They say they want to turn from it, and they say, hey, you don't know what God will do. So they had the right mindset at this time. Verse 10, and God saw their works, that they turned from their evil way, and God repented of the evil that he had said that he would do unto them, and did it not, brothers and sisters. But let's go to Nahum, because ultimately what took place was that this people, this same nation, about 100 or so years later, they had changed their mindset. And you'll see the cup of iniquity reaches its brim. This is Nahum, the 3rd chapter and verse 1. Nahum reads, woe to the bloody city. It is all full of lies and robbery, and prey departeth not. Full of iniquity. It says the noise of a whip and the noise of a whip and the noise of the rattling of the wheels and of the prancing horses and the jumping chariots. The horsemen lifted up both the bright sword and the glittering spear. And there is a multitude of slain and a great number of carcasses. And there is none end of their of their corpses. They stumble upon their corpses. Verse 3 reads, because this people were extremely cruel, brothers and sisters. Extremely sadistic. When you look at the history of this, of the Assyrians, right? You look at what they did here. It's they were in some of the reliefs that you see, paling people, skinning people alive, all kinds of just sadistic behavior. Listen to this. It says, because of the multitude of the whoredoms of the well-favored harlot, the mistress of witchcrafts, that selleth nations through her whoredoms and families through her witchcrafts. So even this place is dealing in idolatry, brothers and sisters. It says, behold, I am against thee, saith the Lord of hosts, and I will discover thy skirts upon thy face. He's going to blow your skirt. You're going to be ashamed. That's like if a woman walking down the street and her skirt blow up over her head and you can see all that. That's a shameful thing. You don't need to see all that. And that's what's going to happen to this nation. It says, behold, I am against thee, saith the Lord of hosts, and I will discover thy skirts upon thy face, and I will show the nations thy nakedness and the kingdoms thy shame. It says in verse 6, and I will cast abominable filth upon thee and make thee vile. All right. It says, and will set thee as a gazing stock. And it shall come to pass that all that look upon thee shall flee from thee and say, Nineveh is laid waste. Who will bemoan her? When shall I seek comforters for thee? Right? So it happened then, and it's going to happen again, spiritually speaking, when Babylon falls. A similar thing, destruction is coming. But nevertheless, let's keep reading. He says something here. He says, art thou better than populous No, that was situate among the rivers, that had the waters round about it, whose rampart was the sea, and her wall was from the sea? Ethiopia and Egypt were her strength, and it was infinite. Put and living were thy helpers. What is he talking about? Let's go to Jeremiah 46. He said, are you better than these nations? What happened to these nations? Jeremiah 46 and verse 15. It says, Jeremiah 46 and verse 14, excuse me. It says, declare ye in Egypt, and publish in Migdol, and publish in North, and in Tophnes, say ye, stand fast and prepare thee, for the sword shall devour round about thee. While thy valiant man swept away, they stood not, because the Lord did drive them. He made many to fall, yea, one fell upon another, and they said, arise, and let us go again to our own people, in the land of our nativity, from the oppressing sword. They did cry there, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, is but a noise. He hath passed the time appointed. Brothers and sisters, what took place was that this place was destroyed. Verse 25, it says, the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, said, behold, I will punish the multitude of No, and Pharaoh and Egypt with their gods and their kings, even Pharaoh and all them that put their trust in him. And he asked him, were you better than they? Right? Destruction came on them, and destruction is coming upon you. So in verse 15 of Nahum 3, it says, there shall the fire devour thee, the sword shall cut thee off, it shall eat thee up like the cankerworm. Make thyself many as the cankerworm, make thyself many as the locust. See, destruction was coming upon these people. Let's go to Luke. Let's go to Luke. Because here, we want to read something the Lord is telling us, because we can, these nations fall, right? And right now we're in the time of the Gentiles, brothers and sisters. Gentiles are Europeans. So these European nations, they rule over the third and fourth world. They've colonized the world. They've enslaved many. And we're under the impression like that's going to continue. That's not going to continue. Their cup of iniquity going to reach its brim. Ultimately, even when you're looking at the three sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, every one of them had their time to rule. Ham, the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes. Donovan's Pictorial Bible Dictionary tells us, not the Negroes, but the Ethiopians, Egyptians, etc. Those lands of Ham, the African continent, those nations, they ruled. Mali was a great kingdom. Shanghai was a great kingdom. The Kush, Axum, all great kingdoms. Ghana, Ashanti, these are great kingdoms. These are great kingdoms that even went beyond Egypt. Even these kingdoms went beyond what was going on in Europe. Especially at that time, they brought civilization to Europe. But nevertheless, those kingdoms fell. You had this Semitic or Shem's children, the Arabs, their kingdoms. You had Israel, their kingdom, right? But right now, who's the top dog, if you will, or the top authority is Europeans. Europeans, the Gentiles, the sons of Japheth. Okay? And you know who Europeans are, just reading Genesis 10. You can also look at where Paul, the apostle to the Gentiles, was going. He was going throughout Europe and parts of Asia. He wasn't down in the interior of Africa. Why? Because he was speaking to these white people. Okay, and then what did they do? They took what he gave them and they adulterated it and co-opted it and ruined it and then passed it on to the world. Gave you a white Jesus and then enslaved God's people. And then in slavery, they gave them this slave religion that they concocted, that put them on top and said, wait for your heaven or your paradise in the time to come, you can't have it now, right? Right now, you're supposed to toil. You're supposed to be second class. You're supposed to be a slave, right? And they continue to enslave us spiritually and literally with this false religion. But here's the mercy of God. The book they gave us, if you really read it and what it's saying, it's your liberation. Because it is not saying anything that these so-called Christians are talking about. None at all. It's telling you that Jesus back is telling you that you're the apple of his eye. He's telling you to repent and turn to him, and he'll free you from your captivity. They gave you the answer. These people, these same people who didn't want to teach you how to read, used to be against the law to teach us how to read. These same people who lashed our backs, opened our backs with the bullwhip, put salt in the wound. These same people who worked us from sun up to sundown. These same people who sold our children and raped our wives. These same people, when they gave us this book, they didn't understand that they had given us, even though we've been lost our true Hebrew, our true language, our customs and ways and norms, and mores have been lost, we recapture them right back here in another language. That's why Isaiah reads in another, with stammering lips in another tongue will I speak to these people. But let's read something here, because ultimately, even though these Gentiles run the world right now, you can't deny that. Even though these Europeans run the world right now, these sons of Japheth, that is not going to continue. Let's read this here. This is Luke 21 and we should start at verse 20. Because here's the twofold prophecy, if you will. Because he's talking about what was going to happen then when Titus came and ransacked Jerusalem. He besieged it in 70 AD, and then that was the last time the true Israelites were in the land, right? I'm talking wholesale, okay? So it says, and when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh, or it is near. Destruction is on the horizon, right? Okay, but let's skip down to verse 24, because he says something. He says, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captive into all nations. Well, we read about that. We read about that when Israel was going to go into captivity. Why? Because we didn't know the time of our visitation. We didn't understand that we should have followed God. And even when God in the flesh came, we rejected him. But it says, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled, until their cup of iniquity has reached its brim. They have a time in which they're going to, and then what's going to happen when the Lord set everything back in order, they're going to be on the bottom. They're going to be servants. That's what's about to happen. That is what is about to happen. Let's go to Joel and see, they become so arrogant. And again, I'm not speaking in individual terms. I'm talking about these nations as a whole. These Gentiles have become so arrogant that at the second coming of Christ, which is fast approaching, they are going to try to fight God. That's why in Psalms, the second division, it says, the Lord, he that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh, the Lord shall, he shall have them in derision and vex them in his sore displeasure. That's why you read Revelation 19. They're going to try to fight God, these armies. But he tells them something. You got to think about this. It says in Joel 3 and verse 9, it says, well, let's read verse 8. What he said, because he is upset as what's happened to his people. Well, in fact, we'll just start here. In verse 1, it says, for behold, in those days and in that time when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, right? The times of the Gentiles going to be fulfilled. And then what's he going to do? He's going to bring us out of captivity. Because you like, I'm not captive. You've never been home. You don't even know what it means to have a nation. While you singing the pledge of, saying a pledge of allegiance with your hand on your heart, and you singing the Star Spangled Banner, you've lost your mind. This country has done everything to reject you. brought you over your forefathers and foremothers by way of ships in the hull of the ships, and then worked you for 246 years, then 100 more years of Jim Crow, then you're in the age of mass incarceration, right? And right now, our children are getting killed in the streets on videotape, and nobody's getting indicted, right? Doing program after program after program to destroy us, and you still want to be an American. Negro, wake up. Wake up, like they did in what was that, School Days at the end. Wake up. Wake up. We the walking dead, on fire, but taking out the heart. On fire. We are on fire. Look, can you imagine a man walking down the street on fire? That's Israel. That's us. Walking down the street, pants sagging, right? Blunted out of your mind, right? X'd out of your mind. Sipping syrup, right? Going down the street with blonde hair and ocean blue eyes. We've lost our minds. Men don't know how to be men, dressing like women. Women want to be the man, dressing like men, taping their breasts down, sagging their pants, walking with some other women like they are a man. Look at our kids. And look at us spiritually. Have more churches than anybody else in our neighborhoods. Look like they've been bombed. Our neighborhoods like war zones. And we kill each other at astronomical rates. We on fire. We don't take it to heart. But soon this captivity, we don't even have a name. We don't walking around with the slave master's last name, right? Don't even realize it. Name Johnson. Who is Johnson? Name Smith. Who is Smith? Name Jefferson. We know who that is, don't we? But it says in verse 2, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. Then he says, and they have cast lots for my people and have given a boy for an harlot and sold a girl for wine that they might drink. They sold us as you might sell a chicken or a cow, as they sold us as mere commodities. When they were writing their ledgers and their books, they would keep their books. They say chickens. They write a number. Then they write the cow, you know. Then they put one of our names down, right under the cow and the chicken. He says in verse 8, and I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hands of the children of Judah. Right? So understand, you reap what you sow. You reap what you sow. Now that won't be the type of barbaric slavery that you engaged in, but understand what the Bible is saying. It says in verse 9, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. He said, and we read in Luke 21, it said, the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Here it is. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, these Europeans, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Right? This one is going to try to fight God. It says, assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, all you that don't know God, and gather yourselves together round about, thither cause thy mighty ones to come down. Let the heathen be wakened, and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, for there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. So your cup of iniquity have reached its brim. You truly have lost your mind. You're going to try to fight God. You read that in Revelation 19, as well as Psalms, the second division. He says, put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, get you down, for the press is full, the fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. That's why it's coming. The cup of iniquity has reached its brim. That's why it's coming. It shows you how wicked this man is when he would try to fight the Creator. You try to cast his cords away from you, he will sit and laugh at you. Just so we know this talking about the second coming of Christ, it says, multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. The sun and the moon shall be darkened, and the stars shall withdraw their light shining. The Lord also shall roar out of Zion and utter his voice from Jerusalem. That's how we know that this is talking about the second coming. The sun and the moon shall be darkened. The stars shall not give their light. We read that in Matthew 24. We read that all over the book. But this says in verse 16, the Lord also shall roar out of Zion and utter his voice from Jerusalem, and the heavens and the earth shall shake, but the Lord will be the hope of his people and the strength of the children of Israel. Okay? So those people are going to be destroyed. Let's go to Revelation 18. Revelation 18. Revelation 18 and verse 1. Revelation 18 and verse 1. Because here we talked about how Babylon is being perpetuated through Roman Catholicism, and they're going to be empowered during the latter days, during the time of the Great Tribulation, through the reunification of the Roman Empire. They are the aspect of that empire. Okay? Just like in Israel, you would have a king, you'd have a high priest. Well, you're going to have the reunification of the Roman Empire through the European Union. You're going to have military and politics coming out of that, but the spiritual power, and even higher than that power, is through the Roman Catholic Church. Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And the abomination of desolation is going to come from the office of the Pope. That's where the abomination of desolation is coming from. The office of the Pope. All right. So it says in Revelation 18:1, and after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. It says, for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, spiritually have been made drunk with this bad doctrine. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. See, this idolatry, this false worship is lucrative. That's what it's talking about. Even when you read in Acts, when they were talking about Diana, and they were saying, hail Diana, because all the silversmiths were when they said, man, we're gonna lose money because this Paul, they preaching this new doctrine, and they not dealing with Diana. We're gonna lose our place and our livelihood. I can't have that. That's just like these false prophets. Soon, the closer and closer it gets, when this truth starts going forth more and more, who you think gonna have a problem with it? These false prophets, same one that had a problem with it in the days of Jesus. The religious leaders. Why? Because, hey, you're not going to take our station. You're not going to take our place. These preachers have, vast majority, I'm talking 90+%, 99, seem like +%, have sold out. You Negroes meeting with political leaders because you want some money. You want to get paid. And then you will prostitute your own people out and prostitute yourselves out for some fame, for some money. Hypocrites. And that's for the Republicans and the Democrats, because you've been prostitutes for the Republicans and Democrats. You hugging Bush crying on his shoulder. Negro, you've lost your mind. You will host these killers in your churches, but it don't matter because you worshiping falsely anyway. God is not in that place. All types of wickedness and abominations you perpetuating in these places. In verse 4, so it says, and I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, and ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. Then it says something. It says, for her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. The cup of iniquity reached his brim, brothers and sisters, and destruction came. Get out of the way. That's what you need to do. I want to read something to you. Just some stuff I had jotted down that was on my mind. Because when you think about this country, you have to think, you have to consider. You know, you often hear, even the Pledge of Allegiance, one nation under God, the God of this world, not the true and living God. This is, you hear politicians say, at the end of a speech, God bless you and God bless these United States of America. Well, how is God going to bless a nation such as this? If you think about, okay, the foundation of the nation, right? If you think about just some things that go on right now, genocide and bloodshed and slavery is the foundation. Violence is the foundation, okay? If you think about unjust. If you think about what's going on right now, okay? Now, one thing to mention God in this society right now, you're seen as someone who is less intelligent, okay? You see that's in academia, right? In higher education. If you are talking about God, you must be, something's wrong with you, right? Because there is no God, according to these so-called scholars, right? Who cannot prove their points, right? When challenged, you see it. So you see it in higher education. You see it throughout the public school system, right? It's not as if people, it used to be, you know, people would even talk about God. They praying for God. Pray in the schools. You can't pray. You can pray in the school, but the school is not going to lead you in prayer unless it's some religious school. Public schools, that's been taken out of the schools. Not saying that people are righteous, but it just shows you how far people are getting away. Now in the schools, they take prayer out of the schools, but in some of these states, homosexual curriculum is mandated. They just had a case in Illinois where the school is facing the possibility of losing federal funding because they said, no, we don't want to allow a boy to use the girls' locker room. You see, that's where we're headed. Yeah, to destruction. Totally away from God. Right? So you think about what's going on there. You think about just some other things. You think about just what you see on television. Just what you see on television. Think you turn, I'm talking not the even, I'm not talking of, when I was coming up, people wanted to see some illicit things sexually, they'd have to go and they'd have to buy those channels. Now you see that in the commercials. You're liable to see two men kissing in a commercial, two men holding hands, or these shows that come on 257, channels 2, 5, and 7, illicit sex, 32, illicit sexual. And let me tell you something. We as a people, we need to stop doing that which is degrading and supporting that which is degrading to us and ungodly. Okay, so I'm just putting this out there. This show Empire, we don't need to support that. I watched the first episode and that was it. I said, what is this foolishness? We need not support it. It puts us in a very negative light. It promotes every stereotype. It promotes a destructive and ungodly lifestyle. I don't care how you try to spin it. And the one who's put forth this particular program, I believe it's Lee Daniels. Again, I mentioned this a while or so ago, made this show, which is detrimental, as they say, man, you setting us back with that one, setting us back. And he's even said he wants to break down the wall of so-called homosexuality in the black community. You see, but what did he tell? He called us to be a holy people. We shouldn't accept that. I'm not saying you throw people away, because ultimately what we all need to do is repent and turn to God. But you don't see. So we're going to say, hey, you know what? You could be a sodomite, because that's what it is, sodomy, or you want to be a homosexual, excuse me. Then, okay. If you saying that, then you saying it's also okay to commit adultery. It's also okay to commit idolatry. It's also okay to fornicate. It's also okay to lay with beasts. All these things are sins. And you can't prove that you were born gay. You can't, there's no gay gene. What it is your mind is bad. That's what it is. And that's a death culture. We should not accept that. So him, and he can take that show. He can take Precious along with a terrible Terrible movie. And Monster Ball throw that mess in the trash. You got I'm just thinking about things that we see. You got Olivia Pope, she a present day bed wench. That's what she act. That's the present day bed wench. You try to pawn off that she's laying with this white president as if he's already married and that's supposed to be love. And then she having an abortion on the show. And again, I don't watch this mess. I just hear what people say. From my understanding, she had an abortion on the show, and then she's while she having an abortion, they singing Silent Night. Wicked, right? Not saying you should be singing Christmas songs, but my goodness, you don't know who you're killing. But so you have that. Then you have just the sexual debauchery that you see in music videos. I'm just speaking frankly. I was on YouTube looking at something, and whatever I was looking at, they had it to where I guess it was monetized, so they had video or commercials come up, or even in this case, it was a video, and it was Chris Brown. Again, I'm just saying names, just saying what I saw, speaking plainly, and one of the he's with this Caucasian boy, and they I guess they supposed to be white men can't jump, right? I guess it's his, I don't know the man's name, the other guy he was with. They supposed to be rapping. I'm just looking at this, and I'm like, man, what? And it was whack. It was a whack song. And then Chris Brown had a lyric in the song said, you know, he got one girl here and one girl there in a car in the range or something. He said he gonna sleep with them both. You want to watch, right? And your kids are listening to this. That's brothers and sisters. We need to get out of that foolishness. We need to get out of that foolishness. And even, you know, the things we see that we laugh and we think is a joke, it's an abomination to God. And even I'm watching again. I don't watch a lot of TV. Sometimes I watch documentaries on YouTube. I watch a lot of different commentaries, people preaching and different things like that. Seeing what people are saying, you know, thinking about what people are saying. And I'm watching, I forgot what I clicked on, and then again, monetized. So that's why this page is not monetized, because I don't want that foolishness on this page, even though they pay you for it. Right? So it's a State Farm commercial. And on the State Farm commercial, they have DeAndre Jordan, again, I'm saying names. DeAndre Jordan, who was about 6'11", 7 feet tall. He's a monster on the basketball court. Jump out the gym. He's in a dress, black man, of course, with a goatee. He's dressed as a white woman. Got a white, he got a wig. I don't know if he's got a big blonde wig on. So I don't know if he's dressed as a sister and this short skirt on. Is he dressed as a sister, or is he dressed a sister that's because we've been told that we're less than, so we want to have blonde hair all permed out. I don't know if he's dressed as that or if he's dressed as a white woman. It's all confusing. So listen to this. So DeAndre Jordan, right, is in a dress. Now he's one of the strongest players in the league. I'm talking strength, right? So you in a dress, in a wig, you neutralize. You are no threat. That's why, and I'm going to do something on the effeminization of black males. I'm going to do something on that. And men in particular. I'm going to do something on that probably Friday. Even if it's not long, I want to do something and show you out of the scriptures, tie it into the scriptures, and how, this is totally inappropriate, right? But you got the strongest man, he in a dress. You got Kevin Garnett, right? He's old, right? So he's the grandfather. So he's no threat. You got Damian Lillard, who is a baby. So he's no threat, right? And then you got Chris Paul. Now, Chris Paul is DeAndre Jordan's, from my understanding, that's his wife. They supposed to be the Hoopers. That's a family. And then Kevin Love is a child. He just throw Kevin Love in there. It's all crazy, right? So wait a minute. So listen how they neutralize black men. And the media is extremely powerful, brothers and sisters. Think about all the black men that have been in dresses. Again, I'm gonna talk about this probably Friday at 10 o'clock this week. So you got Kevin Garnett. He's no threat because he's an old man, right? He pushing the baby away, saying, "Oh, this baby need to change his baby," right? Then Damian Lillard, he's no threat because he's a child, right? Like in Baby Boy, a child, right? No threat. DeAndre got him in a dress and a wig, a blonde wig. He come hysterical running down the stairs in this short, low-cut skirt. And then you got Chris Paul. If y'all the hoopers and DeAndre is the woman, Chris Paul, you gay. I'm not saying he's gay in real life. That's a commercial. I'm talking about, but in the commercial, if you really think about it, if that's the wife and you the husband, you gay. So you also no threat. See, they love to see us as no threat because they've always looked upon us as a threat. They've always looked upon us as a threat. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that more on Friday. So these are just some things we see, just inappropriate. You see on videos, music videos, you see in movies, right? You see in society. Just some more things. So, look at the homosexuality. Okay, I touched upon that briefly. This country has made it legal for people of the same sex to marry, right? That's what Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed for. That's where you get the word sodomy from. And this country has adopted that death culture wholesale, and then it's putting it on the children. Understand, for you older folks, some of y'all might not be out in the streets proclaiming it, right? You may not have the audacity to make a YouTube page and say homosexuality is wrong, right? Because you're scared of the backlash. That's understandable. That's understandable because there will be backlash. But one thing about it, this whole movement in this present day is not going to be for you. You're going to die out. It's for the children. The children adopted wholesale. Our children adopted wholesale. So, that's something that shows you that this country is a cup of iniquity. It's reaching its brim. Just something else. Let's see, what else did I write down? Oh, abortion. I touched upon that as well. Abortion. And this book is mainly about that, killing black innocents. The program to control African-American reproduction from slavery's end to the present-day self-inflicted genocide. It has abortion statistics in there for our people, okay? We've killed roughly, conservative estimates, 15 million. That's conservative. But since Roe v. Wade, conservatively, it's been about 50 million abortions. How can God bless America? God bless you. God bless the truth. God bless America. How can God bless America when you killing your babies like that? You ripping them out of the wombs of mothers, and many of them, why are they pregnant? The vast majority, and why they getting an abortion? We know why they're pregnant. They didn't lay down. But why they getting an abortion? The vast majority of abortions occur because it is inconvenient to have a child at the time. The issue is not rape. The issue is not incest. Very few, and I mean very few, abortions occur because of rape or incest. And I'm not saying it would be okay even in that instance, because you compound something that's wrong with murder. Okay, that's what you do. But that's not even why the vast majority of women are getting abortions. They're getting abortions because having a child would be inconvenient. I want to go to school. I want to still party. I'm too young, right? Well, first of all, you're supposed to be married. And that's another thing. Look at all these children being born outside of wedlock. That number's growing. Even after slavery, right? We could control having children within the confines of marriage. About 90% of black babies were born in wedlock, right? Even if they laid down and wasn't married, hey, they got married. before that baby came. Now 70% for our people, and the number is growing. Divorces on the rise. Premarital sex in general. Man, find a virgin among young people today. You hard pressed to find one because they're having sex younger and younger. Yes, teenage pregnancy rates, they seem to be going down a little bit, but understand that's not saying that they're not having sex. Not only are they having sex, man, these kids, as a matter of fact, let me give you this statistic. One in 4 in America, one study I read had 1 in 4 teen girls from 13 to 19, 1 in 4, 25% had an STD. 25% of teenage girls in this study, this is a big study, between 13 and 19 years old had an STD, sexually transmitted infection or sexually transmitted disease. They call it different things. For African American, so-called African American females, it was 1 in 2, or 48%. So half had a sexually transmitted disease. Young people. Look at HIV/AIDS running rampant in the so-called African American community. And we've been told, hey, wrap it up. You can live a good life. It's almost as if like when you have AIDS now, and I'm not, please don't think I am downplaying that disease or people making light of that disease. But it's not, when I was coming up, I'm sounding old, not that old, but I'm saying when I was coming up, when they talked about HIV and AIDS, people got scared. Now it's like you can just live with it, right? Now you can just live, it's all good. So wait a minute. So these sexually transmitted diseases that are running rampant, right? That you see that are a consequence for illicit sexual behavior. Now it's okay. Just take a pill or just wrap it up, right? That's the cup of iniquity. The cup of iniquity. So I want to see if there's anything else. So when you think about where this country is at morally, give you another example. Then they had a big statue of Baphomet. Was that in Detroit? And you had people lined up trying to see that, right? They want to take the 10 Commandments down. I'm not saying these the unjust justice system is, is really about justice, right? But it's not about justice. It's unjust. Just us, white folks, right? A lot of times, rich white folks. If you have affluenza, right, you can get the right kind of justice. It's justice for you. You don't have to pay the cost. But if you black in America, you of color in America, you're going to pay. And then some, even for stuff you didn't do, right? Not saying everybody's innocent. What I'm saying is you can put plenty of plenty of innocent people away. You've tortured and done everything else. But, this country is on its way down morally. It's a secular age. It's moral relativism, where you think whatever's right is based on how you feel at the particular time, when that's not the case, brothers and sisters. Jesus Christ is saying yesterday, today, and forever. Sodomy was wrong then, it's wrong today, and it's going to be wrong in the future. You have to think about these things and how the cup of iniquity reached its brim. This country is falling down around you as we speak, trying to hold on to being the superpower of the earth, right? Economically, it's falling while the East rises. Socially, educationally, it's falling. It's not in the upper echelons of Western powers when it comes to education of its citizens. Manufacturing. You want some manufacturing? Look at your shirt and your shoes right now and see where they came from. And see if they came from this country. Political or social unrest is going on right now, and that's another thing. Shows you, just look at how this country has treated God's people. I don't care what anybody has to say. You can take it or leave it. The so-called African American of this country, we are the children of the book. We are God's chosen people. We the ones that fit the description that you read about of what will happen to his people. I could care less what you think. We need to acknowledge that, though, as a people. But nevertheless, you look at how this country has treated us as a people. I mentioned that slavery. I mentioned Jim Crow. I mentioned mass incarceration. And now what are they doing? What they've been doing. The only difference now, they're killing us in the street is what they were doing in the 60s and 70s and 80s. Even all back to them slave catchers. What they do, and they occupy our neighborhoods as an occupying force, right? Treat everybody from the old elderly woman to the child as criminals, right? What are they doing? They're killing us in the streets. Only they've been doing that. They beating us. Been doing that. Only difference is that it's on camera. It's on camera, right? Tamir Rice, Eric Garner, right? These things are on camera. They sprinkling crack on people. It's on camera. Where the indictments at? Sandra Bland. Where the indictments at? You see? And we steady showing that we have no power because we want to march. We're going to march through the streets. Like Soweto. And then what are you going to do? Like when a brother said, his son asked, well, you going to march, where you going? And what you going to do when you get there? Right? You making noise, you yelling, and white police officers in the white establishment, the state, they say, okay, this too shall pass. That's what they say. And they look at it and say, well, what you really going to do? Nothing. You don't have power. You don't have power. You don't have power. It's crazy how, like, you look at what happened to Freddie Gray in Baltimore. Something clearly went wrong, right? Clearly police misconduct. I mean, it's clear and apparent. But hey, first cop, and he said, well, he was black. Listen. Some of the taskmasters, even when you read about Israel and Egypt, some of them were Israelites. They will be quick to put one of us over our own people, but the power structure, even to the office of the presidency. But you could be the black face of white supremacy, okay? But no indictment, no indictment. Well, how did he not get indicted? Or these cops are not getting indicted with stuff you see, pictures and camera phones everywhere. But at the same time, you black in America and you do something, right? You, for example, the young man who was in that uprising, he's smashing the car window, has an astronomical bond, right? One guy, he set fire to a building. Nobody died. Got 8 years. A boy kills is responsible for killing 4 people in a traffic accident, I believe. And he said he don't plead insanity. He pleads affluenza. He's too affluent to know right from wrong, and he gets like 10 years probation. And now he's in Mexico. And you know what he told him? He said, "Man, I'm not coming back." Him and his mama in Mexico. See, that's white privilege. That's white privilege. That's white privilege. But until we turn back to God, we can forget it. But so my point was, in saying all that, is how this country has treated God's chosen people. He said in another place, talking to those, he said, listen, you help forward the affliction. He was angry with his people, but you help forward the affliction. You cannot possibly think that this people, this nation is going to get away with how it's treated God's chosen people. And I wanted to read something. I wanted to read something from Thomas Jefferson, if I could find it real quick. I had it printed out. I thought I had it printed out. But in it, he's talking about, he talks about slavery, and this is a man who owns slaves. He says something. He says, I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just, that his justice cannot sleep forever. That's Thomas Jefferson, a slave owner. That's Thomas Jefferson, who was a slave owner, who had children with Sally Hemings, right? One of his slaves, who wrote Notes on Virginia, one of the most racist pieces of literature, not literature, but it's a classic work, and it's totally racism all throughout it, right? That's what he said. That's what he said. He said he trembles for this country. Brothers and sisters, come out of her up here. Separate. We need to come together as a nation. And we need to, as a nation, turn back to the Most High, to the true power source, and do what he says to do in spirit and in truth. Go back to his law, statutes, and commandments. Have faith in the Messiah. And then we can start to see some progress. We'll start to see the hand of the Lord. All right. So that's that lesson, brothers and sisters. The cup of iniquity. Need to consider that and what time it is. And I just want to remind you that if you are in the Chicagoland or Northwest Indiana area, you can come and worship with us at the Household of Faith. We meet at Indiana University Northwest Library Conference Center, room LC 110 at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. Again, that's the Library Conference Center at Indiana University Northwest Library Conference Center, room LC 110, 3400 Broadway. We also, that's 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. We also live stream on this YouTube page on Israel Teach, Israel Teach, one word, every Sabbath. We live stream our Sabbath lessons. So if you've been watching, or you're interested, and you kind of say, I want to see what they're about, you can see what a service is about, and we will go through, it'll be a topic, and we'll go through the scriptures on that particular topic. Okay? But we do that. We meet every Sabbath at 1 p.m. We live stream these services at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on YouTube. We also have a radio show that you can listen to, our radio show on WLTH 1370 AM if you are in the Chicagoland or Northwest Indiana area. And if you're not, you can live stream this show. This show comes on every Sunday at 4 p.m. Again, that's 1370 AM WLTH. If you're in the Chicagoland area or Northwest Indiana, you can also live stream it on Ustream. Okay, just go to 1370 AM and it'll show you how to live stream it. Or you go to Ustream, you're familiar with it, you can do it that way as well. Let's see. There are also some books I like to mention. You can get these on Amazon.com, or you can go to ElishaJIsrael.com. So you can go to Into Egypt Again with Ships, a message to the forgotten Israelites or African Americans. Got Killing Black Innocents, the program to control African American reproduction from slavery's end to the present day self-inflicted genocide. Got The Pagan Origins. I don't know if you can see that. The Pagan Origins of Christian Holidays. And the newest book, Hair Like Wool, Feet Like Burned Brass, The Color of Jesus, and Burning Truths Concerning the Messiah. Again, these are good reference books, and they are written in a way that, like this book has, it's short. Well, it's not short. It's 124 pages, but it has 100 references. And these books are written in a way to where, especially these three, they're written in a way to where, it's with the Bible. It puts history and the Bible together. So you could see the verses right there. Again, I write them as reference points. And if you don't know anything about the Bible, you can see it for yourself. You can see history and the Bible line up together. Okay, and it's written for the layman or anybody to understand. So that's again, that's the lesson for today. We do this every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 p.m. Okay, so the next time I'll see you, brothers and sisters, will be at 10 p.m. on Friday. Okay, 10 p.m. Friday, 10 p.m. Central Standard Time, and we'll have the services live stream on the Sabbath, which is Saturday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. Also, before I forget, if you have questions, brothers and sisters, you have questions that you biblical questions that you want to put forth, please shoot me a message on this lesson, or even just shoot me a message, and I can try to answer your questions. Okay. And lastly, I did want to touch upon what my subject matter is going to be. Part of it, I know, is going to be on effeminization, and we're laying the black male, and we're laying this in the roles of men and women in particular, and we're laying that back to the Bible, because that is a significant problem that we have right now, is that men don't know how to be men and women don't know how to be women. Okay, and we've gotten out away from the divine order that God has set forth. So I want to thank you for your time, and God bless you.